Oh boy, here we go. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my friends. Hello, Lemon Heads. It's Lemon Live at 5. I got to tell you, I thought about it's like, you know what? It's summer and I need a little break, and I was going to take maybe this Live at 5 off. But I got to be honest with you, there's so many developments coming out of Washington. I mean, just so quickly this week that I think we're living through history. I know we said that a lot with Donald Trump. This is an era when Donald Trump first came on the scene. But what's happening with the Democrats and with the Republicans now, and with both candidates, this is really crazy. So depending on who you ask, it's either nerve-wracking, exhilarating, or downright depressing. No one quite knows how to feel about it. I don't know how to feel about it. Fortunately, my co-pilot tonight on Lemon Live at 5 to get us through all this truly bonkers news and none other than political strategist and analyst Rachel Bitecofer. Rachel, how are you, my friend? There's a lot going on. Did I say your name right? It's Bitecofer or Bitecofer? I always get it wrong.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's Bitecofer.
Bitecofer.
And yeah, that was a perfect execution. It's a very tough thing to say. So
what is like going lemon. I mean, that's awesome. Do we always say that, or is it right to say, what the hell is going on, Rachel?
Oh, guys, listen, you just touched on it, okay? It's not just that we're living history. I picked up this great line from Bill Shire, who did a lot of historical work from his time in the Third Reich. And he has this phrase he used one time: history is breathing down our neck, right? That is what's happening to us right now. It's not just that we're living history, it's breathing down our neck. And we really are in so much uncharted territory. I mean, it was uncharted before all of the last couple of weeks, because I don't think people realize, like, there's not very many presidential elections. I've studied them at the aggregate. So you model a presidential model. It's a very small N size because most people serve 2 terms. So we're talking about a very limited data pool. And now we have introduced a variable into it that we've never had before: an incumbent against a former president. So even within that, we're really in a world that we just don't have anything to compare to.
I didn't even think about that element. It's really 2 incumbents against each other. You know what I'm saying? In an odd way.
Yes.
What did we do though? Who did we piss off? Who did we piss off to be in this situation? So, Rachel, let me just tell the folks what we're going to talk about and what we're going to discuss. And I want the folks who are watching, the subscribers, the viewers, even if there's some haters in there, I'm going to start opening up the comments just to subscribers soon, so that you have to subscribe in order to be able to comment. I want to hear what you have to say about this, because Rachel is the perfect person to discuss this. Are Democrats no longer riding with Biden? That's what we're going to talk about. Can Democrats still win? And Trump reportedly settles on a VP pick, which could happen. We've had a lot going on. We've had, you've got Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority person in Congress, who's coming out and giving, a press conference today. So there's a lot going on. President Biden's top campaign staff attempted to salvage support for the Democratic senators this afternoon. There was a nearly 2-hour meeting, did not appear to immediately resolve the fears. You've got Senator Richard Blumenthal coming out, one of the first senators to publicly raise concerns about Biden's continued candidacy. He told reporters following the meeting that he needs to see more from the campaign, more from Biden himself. Biden may have that opportunity tonight, and perhaps the single most high-stakes presidential press conference in American history, because countless Democratic lawmakers have said explicitly that their ongoing support for a President Joe Biden to ride with Biden rides entirely on his performance. So if it is even remotely similar in style and substance to this disastrous debate performance 2 weeks ago, it could prove to be the final nail in the coffin, in the campaign's coffin, I should say. As of now, 12 Democratic members of Congress, 1 Democratic senator have called on Biden to step aside. However, reporting indicates those numbers could grow exponentially as the NATO conference wraps up, even if Biden's press conference goes well. So, Rachel, are you surprised by this roller coaster nature of the week? I mean, on Tuesday, I really had a feeling that Biden had sort of cemented his support, that it was going to be okay, that he was going to stay in the race, and they were just going to ride with him. Now it doesn't look so good for the president.
Yeah, I wish I could say that, Don, but here's the truth of the matter. You know, on debate night, as I was watching the debate, I realized, oh my gosh, this is what's going to happen. A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? And I'm
Mhm.
sad to report A, B, C, D, E, and F have all happened. And, you know, it's kind of, I've been talking a lot about how there's no winner of this war. It's like this movie in the 80s called War Games that people really loved. The computer takes over the nuclear system. And at the end, it says, the only way to win this game of mutual assured destruction from nuclear warfare is not to play. That really was the only move that would have been structurally, strategically good for Democrats, but it was always going to be an unreasonable thing because people don't behave strategically. They behave, you know, emotionally mostly. So what we have now is kind of the worst of both worlds. We have Biden still in the race, but we have him so damaged that even if he, you know, no matter what, the job to elect Joe Biden will be harder now than it was going to be. From the debate, yes, but also from the reaction to the debate. And with the continued pressure, you almost hope they win, right? Because like if they don't win and they don't get him out, my gosh, like my job's to help elect Joe Biden. It's going to be very difficult to do that. You know, having a big chunk of the public just sees it as a matter of will. And it is to some extent, folks, there is some will involved that you have to be willing to make the change. But a lot of the complexity that people like party leadership knows, and, you know, even, you know, people, the Biden team and people around the campaign organizations understand is that there's a lot of risk involved in switching your nominee, both in terms of what Republicans will do legally about that and in terms of isolating Joe Biden voters. If you skipped Kamala Harris voters, you're really talking about political suicide. So we really have a situation where I think, like, you know, the party is going to have this sorted out in a week. But if you want to know what the answer is going to be, I don't know.
You said that he's so damaged. Do you blame him? Do you blame the press? Do you blame Democrats? Because someone in the comments said, who was it? Linda Caswell says, "I wish this was all over already," and I can't agree with her more. But who's doing the damaging?
Yeah. Oh, it's all of the above, right? So like as an analyst, you have to be able to like see things. Okay? So obviously, I mean, I said Joe Biden's got two things he's got to do in this debate. Number one, he's got to prove that he's not brain dead. That should be easy. Number two, he's got to make sure that he name drops Project 2025 because most of the swing voters in the swing states that we know need to know about Project 2025 today still have never heard the words Project 2025. And obviously, the failure, especially on point one, prove you're not brain dead, was catastrophic. So there's no divorcing Joe Biden and the team and the prep team and all of that from the bulk of the responsibility. That said, I'm a political scientist and I wrote a whole book, and in the middle of my book, I don't really get to talk about it a lot, but I go through media and how the right has both their ecosystem, and that's a very powerful tool, and people usually focus on that, but they also have our system because we behave, like we journalists behave in predictable ways, and we are behaving very predictably this last 2 weeks, I would say.
Meaning, because of the just sort of everybody's, you know, having heart palpitations
Pile
and
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
I want to play.
Yeah.
This is Vermont Senator Welch. What he had to say. He came out today. Watch this.
Did you give the White House a heads up?
My staff, reached out to a few people.
Do you think that
Senator
if
Schumer know as
Biden
well?
remains the nominee, though, aren't you in a position where you're at odds with your party?
Well, just read my statement.
I did. And I recognize that you say
Right.
now is the time and that you've talked to constituents.
Right.
But ultimately, if he remains the nominee, isn't it harmful?
I'm expressing my opinion. You know, ultimately, the president's going to have to make his own decision.
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of context here, I want to just read a bit from Welch's statement asking Biden to step down. And the senator writes this in part. He says, "I have great respect for President Biden. He saved our country from a tyrant. He is a man of uncommon decency. He cares deeply about our presidency. He has been one of the best presidents of our time. But I, like folks across the country, am worried about November's election. The stakes could not be higher. We cannot unsee President Biden's disastrous debate performance. We cannot ignore or dismiss the valid questions raised since that night. For the good of the country, I'm calling on President Biden to withdraw from the race. Then he goes on, he says, Trump is a felon. He's a pathological liar. He's a menace. But the national conversation is focused on President Biden's age and capacity. Only he can change it. I deliver this assessment with sadness. Vermont loves Joe Biden. So he goes on and there he goes. He says, I urge you to do it now, meaning to step aside. What's your response to Senator Welch's letter?
It's all sincere and heartfelt. I mean, it's not wrong, right? It's just that it is strategically not helpful if Joe Biden doesn't leave. If he leaves, okay, good. Right? Like, you know, you end up with Kamala Harris, fine, right? But let's just go through a scenario. Like, you have to, in order to anoint Harris or switch this apparatus to Harris effectively, you have to have willingness from Joe Biden, right? And, you know, I don't know Joe Biden. I'm not on the team. I'm not in his little inner circle. But I hear that he's very stubborn and very, you know, confident about his stuff. So what if he doesn't leave? So then it becomes he's like, oh, we should be talking about Trump. Well, here's the thing. Ali Vitale should be running around House Republicans right now, asking them questions about Project 2025, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen because this distraction is here. And then when, you know, you put out a new statement as a sitting congressperson or a senator, you regurgitate the news cycle. So you're reactivating and feeding that frenzy, whether you want to or not. Like, so, you know, at the end of the day, at this point, you almost have to hope, gosh, I hope these people are successful, because it's going to be very, very difficult now to rally the base around Joe Biden, and the disunity factor for the Democrats is the reason they lost in 2016, Don. I wrote an academic book that showed how the defection, like people think Ralph Nader in Florida in 2000 was this big deal because it was third party. No, 2016 was the third party vote spoiler election. And we're talking about 6 points of spoiler vote in a state like Wisconsin. That's how Donald Trump won the Electoral College by a fluke the first time. And this disunity problem is a huge issue. So for me, it's not that I have a stake in the horse. I don't a horse and, you know, stake on this race. I don't give it who the nominee is. I care that we're all unified and rallied behind him, though. And one of the unfortunate things about so much of this media coverage the last 2 weeks is it's been generated by people who have created and added to this myth or this idea that it's just a matter of will. You just snap your finger and here's the new nominee and everything's great, right? When it's really very, very complex and it's dark and full of terrorists switching out the nominee, because we have really no idea legally how Republicans will respond to that ballot access issue.
Yeah, because they're trying to take him off. The Heritage Foundation is trying to saying that you can't remove Biden from the ballot. I want to put up one of your tweets. You said America is going to die the year before its 250th birthday, and the cause of death will be the American media. You ever wonder why people from Europe get the risk from Trump? The reason is better media. So can you expand on that? I mean, you really think the media problem, it's a media problem and not a Joe Biden problem?
Oh, again, it is a Joe Biden problem, right? These are two different problems, right? There's a problem and Joe Biden created and caused it, but there is a media problem. And let me explain it a little bit to you. So in the media, like, you know, how, your average person on Twitter, right? It's biased and da-da-da-da-da. Well, there is a bias in media, okay? And that bias is it needs to turn a profit. It's a bias that didn't exist in the American media system prior to, you know, some changes that were made after the 1960s. But now any news program is faced with a conundrum. They have to report something, sell a product that very few people like. Okay. Most Americans are not watching the news. And this is a real shocker for people. You know, usually when I come to an audience like yours, Don, this is really hard for us to internalize, but there are other people who know as much about politics as, say, you might know about NASCAR or opera, if you're an opera fan, right? No one knows who Kevin McCarthy is. No one knows who Marjorie Taylor Greene is, okay? Like, these things that we take for common knowledge are not common. And the reason is that, especially as the digital revolution introduced so much choice into the market of what you can spend your free time doing, people have opted completely out of hard news. And then if you are in charge of selling a news product, which I know you were for a very long time, the incentive structure then becomes, how do I get people to to watch this and stay engaged. And, you know, everyone wants to blame the media, the journalists, the corporate owners, whatever it is. And I'm not saying that there aren't problems with those things. I used to teach classes on, I know all of the problems in corporate consolidation, other things. But the main problem in media is that it is designed, you have to sell a product that nobody wants to buy. And in order to do that, you have to resort to sensationalism, clickbait, you know, drama and stuff like that. So, you know, in Europe, most of the media is publicly financed. Like there's actually like a tax you pay in London to watch. You know, you have to pay it. If you want TV, you have to pay the tax that supports BBC. And what that does for BBC, though, I have to say, this last year has really, I think, revealed some problems in the BBC. The BBC is not under that kind of pressure. So their programming is very dry. It's not, you know, infographics and horse race coverage and all of that. It's more substantive policy debate style news. And
but then you have the Daily Mails of the world, and I mean the news of the world, and all of those things. But it's interesting though, because I sat next to someone who's very high up at the Daily Mail, and they said, you know, the dailymail.com or whatever, they can write anything they want about. I said, why do you guys always write stuff about me? And it's never ever true. And they said, well, it's because of the, you know, your First Amendment, and slander is really tough to prove, or libel for a public figure. Now they cannot necessarily do that. They don't have that over there. And they are very careful about how they report on the royal family. Like they say, you know, they have parameters in place and things that they do and they don't do when it comes to that family. And also government figures as well. There are things that they do not report. So I think you're right. I mean, they're actually afraid of reporting wrong, getting things wrong.
Yes.
Because the stakes are so much higher there than they are here.
Yeah. And to put another layer on top of that, like, so yes, I think people are starting to wake up. Like our First Amendment is as radically interpreted as our Second Amendment has become.
I agree.
It's so rigidly, and I used to teach American civil liberties, and I did the whole thing, and I would show my students, look, this Jewish guy, he defended the right of the KKK to march through his town, even though they were, you know, whatever it was, right? I loved, like, I was in the First Amendment cult, but now what we're living through is the emergence of a new technology. I started my career teaching, and it was always about, like, you know, how to be a good consumer of the media, skepticism of corporate consolidation and bias and all this stuff, right? I closed my career 2015 or 2020 teaching. Here's how the media operates. Unlike an internet show or the Daily Caller or whatever it is, there's an entire team that has to fact check and vet the information they're trying to report. Because if you make a mistake and you report something erroneous or wrong, like Dan Rather, you end up with no job, right? So you really have to be very, very careful. The digital space has done so much to, like, democratize democratize information. Okay. But what it has also done is allowed our First Amendment to be weaponized against us. And it's very intentional. So, like, when you look at what has happened to the MAGA mind, what folks have to understand is that's not an organic thing that has happened. It has happened with the use of digital technologies to be able to go in and directly lie to people. So, like, the First Amendment today in America, there's no way around it. It provides you the right to lie.
It does. And so this is very, very controversial for journalists. They hate it when I say this, but I do think that we need to go back and revisit New York Times versus Sullivan. I really do. Because I think that
and we have to decide we can regulate things, right? So, like, this idea that we can't have, like, they have free speech in Europe, but you can't you can't make up a story about Don Lemon attending a child sacrifice and drinking baby blood. Okay. Like, you can't do that, because if you do, you're going to get sued, and the libel and slander laws are much more aggressive, and that's the difference.
Oh my gosh, I've learned that so much over the last couple of years. It's been so frustrating not to be able to defend yourself, right? Because when people write things and you get the big uproar and whatever, and then when you respond to them, nobody cares. And then it's true just because someone wrote it, right? And so I think people would not write bullshit if they knew that they would get sued for writing bullshit. Listen, this is breaking. I want to say, and speaking of, you said when people don't know who Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz or any of those folks, how lucky they are not to be. Ignorance is bliss. So I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. So Representative Marie Glussenkamp has also called for Joe Biden to step aside. You want to talk about that? Is asking him to resign and drop out of the presidential race.
Yeah, today has been a very interesting day. It's very clear to me that there's a big chunk of party of members, electeds who are running for re-election, who have a sense that if Biden is the standard bearer, they will not win their race. Now, I would tell them it doesn't matter what happens in the down ballots if we lose the presidency this time, but that's a conversation for another day. And so my guess is, I mean, my hope is that he's going to come out in this press conference, either give such a stunning performance that everyone's like, or we're going to see a flurry of more of this after the press conference. I think it's going to be a very, crazy 24 hours here.
You believe that? How, meaning what?
I mean,
when you say very crazy, more and more people are going to come out unless?
Yes, that's what I think. Unless he comes, let's say he does a press conference and it is like, I don't know, like an Oscar worthy, you know what I mean? Like it's going to have to not just be doable or good or competent. It's going to have to be
Obama-esque.
Really, yeah, Obama-esque, right?
Clinton-esque.
And do you think Joe
Bill Clinton
Biden's capable of that kind of? I'm not sure that I think that he's, it's the same problem Hillary ran into. Hillary would have been an excellent president. She's a terrible candidate. Okay. Some people are very, very good candidates. And there's no like Katie Hobbs, governor of Arizona, not a great on the stump, but amazing as a governor, right? Like the talents that you need to win office and do office, obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene's a great example of this. The talents she needs to win office, especially in that cult party, are one thing. Knowing who the actual founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence are, it's another thing, right? Yeah. Like she can't do the job, but damn, she can run for it, right?
Yeah. People are asking where Marie Glussenkamp Perez is from. She's Washington State's 3rd district is where she's from. Not a big name, but again, it's just there's another person, right, to add to the roster. Okay, so let's see. Where should I go? I want to pivot a bit more, and I want to bring in this sound, Rachel. This is this morning. Apologies to the elimination. I know that I played it a lot, but this is from this is them covering the rumored secret war that Barack Obama has launched against Joe Biden. Watch this. Do we have it? I guess anticipation. I guess we don't have it. All right.
Hey, do you want me to do my holding music?
Yes, I do. Are you aware of this, that, Obama is doing this thing? Yeah, we have it. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's see this.
Jonathan O'Meara, Joe Biden is deeply resentful of his treatment under not only the Obama staff, but also the way he was pushed aside for Hillary Clinton. He's deeply resentful of those trying to shove him out of the way. He's always felt like an outsider, always felt like people have looked down upon him. And that's why I said at the top of the show, and people.
Okay. What do you make of that?
I mean, Joe's not wrong, he so often isn't. He's, I love Joe Scarborough a lot because he's a truth teller, right? I mean, this is the problem. We have literally created 12 nights or 13, whatever the debate was. I ran through what's going to happen next based on my knowledge of predictable behaviors. And we are now living through the absolute worst. So if it had stopped with Ezra Klein and the Prod Save America bros and, pressure on the editorial pages, I think it would have been one thing. It's the spooked. It's so easy to spook Democrats. They're the weakest posturally strategic thinkers. It's just part of being a liberal, having a liberal attitude. You're not aggressive, mean, right? Like it's part of that, right? So having electeds putting on this pressure because they are convinced they cannot win with him, has really put it to the point where all you can do is hope that they are successful in getting rid of him, because I don't know how you're going to rally people around him after this.
I have to tell you that I cannot confirm, this reporting that they're saying, but we have seen Obama's chief strategist, David Axelrod, and the Pod Save America guys, as you mentioned. You had Ezra Klein as well, very close to Obama, and a Obama ally, George Clooney, attack Biden this week, right? Not really attack him. I guess I wouldn't call it an attacking him. You think it was eviscerated? You think it was an attack?
Yeah, it was like a velociraptor, man. All the entrails spilling out, Don.
Well, listen, Obama also intervened in Democratic politics before. He's done it before. Remember when he pressured Klobuchar, Buttigieg, to drop out after South Carolina? That was back in 2020. So do you think Obama sees something that we don't?
I mean, I think everybody's seeing the same thing, right? Here's the situation as it stands. We have a nominee that isn't a great candidate and has a major flaw, which is that the public perceives him as too old to do the job. He came out in his first public appearance that anybody normal would ever watch and proved that point, right? And so, but it's also true that it's July, that all the pledged delegates are for him, that these processes to create a nomination are now months ahead of the convention. The convention is like the cap of the event. It's not the beginning of the process, right? So it really has created a nightmare scenario. It couldn't possibly be any worse. And I think it's important, people look to me for realism. So I'm always giving it as you need to know and not what you want to hear kind of analysis. And so I'm not going to lie to people. It is very, very, very bad. But when you introduce the solutions, switching Biden out with Harris, that's the cleanest and most, in my opinion, only feasible solution. You start to introduce variables that that your average New York Times op-ed columnist isn't going to be schooled enough or, an expert enough to understand. Things like ballot access, things like how do you switch the infrastructure? You've got 150 field offices in operation in the swing states. It's the one advantage that Democrats actually had this cycle, was this organizational advantage, okay? Mm-hmm. And if to switch the nominee even to Harris is all going to compromise to some extent that, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't be done. I am so agnostic. I don't give two shits who the nominee is, okay? Because this election,
vote for whoever it is.
It needs to be about Donald Trump, not about our candidate. Right. We flip our new candidate, by the way, we get rid of the media narrative about how we've hidden Joe Biden's decline and da-da-da-da-da. But folks, that doesn't mean we get a new media narrative that we're going to like, because the media narrative instead is going to spend 2 to 3 months aggressively chasing down Kamala Harris, okay? So instead of the news cycle focusing on Trump, every day the news is about Trump, we win. Every day the news is not about Trump and MAGA, is a loser day for us, right?
So
because all that matters to the swing voter is narrative. Yep.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. You said and it could be the Vice President Kamala Harris, and you think that is the easiest swap out, you think? And if it's not her, then it becomes too complicated for not even just you said the New York Times political writer or whatever it is, but also for, I think, the voter as well. It becomes a little complicated. They're like, wait, yes. What's going on? Why are we doing this? Who we voted, who's on the ballot where or whatever. So yeah. And they did. Organization was the one big advantage that they did have. And now it seems that they have lost that. Okay. So
well, we still have it today, right? But the conversation is, should we just throw it out the window? Because it's still there today, Don. That organizational advantage is still there. It's humming right now as we're talking. But
I could be wrong, but I had this weird thing. And when I saw, I was like not cooking. I was warming up some gumbo that my mom left for me, froze she froze for me. I know. And I had the MSNBC on, and I looked up and I was like, Joe Biden is not going to drop out. I don't think he's going to do it. I know there are a lot of people calling, but I don't know. He's stubborn, but who knows?
Yes.
Is Donna Brazile right though? When you go through all these scenarios, Donna Brazile says it's left up to the delegates, Don. It's not left up to the politicians. They can say all they want. They can't get Joe Biden to drop out. But if the delegates decide something different, they will have much more leverage when it comes to Joe Biden.
Well, not as long as they're pledged. They have no leverage. When you are a pledged delegate, you are
Wow, okay.
pledged to the nominee. Okay. And that's why, like, the Sanders revolt was limited to the pledged Sanders delegates, of which there was a lot, enough to make optics really bad for Democrats at the Democratic National Convention in 2016. But the only way those delegates become free is if Joe Biden frees them and then he pushes them to someone else. Let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever met a delegate of either party? Have you ever met a delegate?
Yeah, I know Donna Brazil.
Okay, well, Donna's more like leadership, okay? But
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you.
I have met some delegates.
Like, delegates are some of the most active people in either party, in either system. And the reason, for folks, that they're so active is they tend to be very ideological. That's why they're active and willing to blow their Saturday on door knocking, right? So like, we're not talking about the most strategic element of the party when we say, hey, let's just have an open floor debate. Number one, that open floor debate, folks, is scheduled to occur 3 weeks after ballot deadlines start to pass, okay? Because some of them have August 1st deadline. So it's the best scenario for switching is Kamala Harris, because you are going to make some people very mad when you switch out Joe Biden. You may not see these folks so much in your Twitter feeds, folks, okay? But there are millions out there that are going to be absolutely shocked if Joe Biden's not the nominee. And the only hope we have of getting those people to accept it is for him to graciously push the delegates to Harris and, pass the torch. You can't do it unless he's willing. And that's problem number one, I think, that Democrats face, right?
But okay, so here's the thing. When you mentioned, and you said that some people are going to be mad if you switch him out. Okay, it's true. I'm just, because this is our show where we talk to the viewers and I want to hear what they have to say. So please, if you have questions for Rachel, who knows all things politics and a lot about the Democratic Party, you actually, don't you advise Democrats, right?
I wrote a book called Hit 'em Where It Hurts, How to Save Democracy by Beating Republicans at Their Own Game. And it has been given out by the DNC to many, many people.
Okay.
I'll just put it that way. And
okay.
Jamie Harrison, of course, blurbs the book, but it's also blurbed by Michael Steele, who I invent all this strategic shift work that I'm doing. I took from the Republicans, how they win and dominate electoral politics. So that's it is. I advise people. Yes, I tend not to talk specifically about my clients online.
Well, here's what they're saying. So I'm voting for whoever says one boga. I'm voting for whoever is running against Trump. Carrie King says, I hate getting mad. Now I have to calm all 27 of me the F down. Someone in here actually says, so Cal Asani says, we're not switching, in all caps and multiple exclamation points. Vincent Hartman says, I was delegate for Biden in Clark County, Nevada in 2020. So President Biden is awesome, says Antoinette B. So there are people who are still out there. I just wonder, if Democrats have their finger on the pulse. I'm not sure, because I get a lot of Biden support here, but maybe it's just here. So there you go.
You want to know what I think? I think we can get away. I think they can get away with switching Biden out if it's Harris and it's done that way and he's willing and he's a happy cheerleader and he tells all the supporters, get behind Harris 100%. I think we can survive, but to me, it's not going to be, it's not necessarily a much easier path to victory. The most important part now for it is the psychological effect that it will have on our down ballot candidates, because the worst thing that could have happened to me for 3 years, I've been trying to teach these people how to do offense, right? This scandal or this, whatever debacle has put all of our race candidates, all of our, front red to blue candidates in both the Senate and the House. Now they want to go into surrender cobra, like when you watch football and everyone's like, oh, they're going to get the touchdown, right? Like everyone's in a defensive crouch, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm trying to get them to do. So for me at this point, if it's the psychological benefit of the switch down ballot with the candidates and the campaigns down ballot, that would be the main benefit.
So speaking of VP, you said the easy switch would be the vice president. Axios got a scoop from Donald Trump world, okay? And it says, this is context. I'm not quoting exactly here. Donald Trump Jr. is scheduled to speak right before his father's vice presidential pick at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee on Wednesday. That's what Axios has learned. Why it matters? It is the latest sign that former President Trump has zeroed in on Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, as a favorite contender to be his running mate over North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum and Senator Mark Rubio of Florida. Trump has been coy about his VP choice, which he'll announce within days, but Don Jr. has been early and vocal, an early and vocal booster of Vance and the convention speaking order. It is the clearest indication yet that the 39-year-old senator could have the inside track on being named the GOP's vice presidential nominee. Rachel, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be VP Vance, nominee, pick, whatever?
Oh, I think that's very possible. And here's why. Trump has one criteria. In 2016, he had a different criteria. It's easy to forget how divided Republican elites were in 2016. Eventually, the mass public all was on Team Trump, the Trump train, but the elites were incredibly divided for a long time about it. And, the idea that like it's not going to be somebody that he's 100% sure will go along with the unconstitutional agenda that is Project 2025 and Agenda 47, Project 2025 being the Heritage Foundation's, administrative transition plan to consolidate power into the president and give him full control of all the civil servants, right? Like be getting rid of a lot of them and replacing them with political hacks. So for me, it's never been Burgum because Burgum has expressed, he's Mike Pence-y, and he actually believes in some of the stuff that he read in the Constitution. Okay. Burgum has that on his record. So for me, he has never been a possibility. And I think the only thing that Trump is looking for is when I need someone to do what he wanted Pence to do was unconstitutional. And Pence is like, I'm a constitutional conservative. I'm not doing it. He wants somebody who's just going to say, yes, sir. And Vance is definitely that kind of guy. Josh Hawley, JD Vance, or Tim Scott, either of the three. And it might have been someone like Noem because Trump loves pretty and understands it sells. And, as much as we dislike Kristi Noem and her dog killing ways, she's a gorgeous presentation. Very, very good on as retail and
not going to happen with the dog though.
Yeah, but now it's not going to happen. And Vance seems to me like the likely guy.
So it's
and he's a
not
fascist. I mean, nobody in Ohio ever pointed that out to the Ohio electorate, but there is many things with JD Vance that Trump would love, okay? Like misogyny, full-on Christian nationalist embrace. Like he's all in and Trump needs that. That's the most important element of his base. So how do you satisfy the Christian nationalist without sacrificing the ability to break the law when the time comes? And the answer, of course, would be JD Vance to that.
So then why not a woman? Because doesn't he need to shore up women? Why not a Gabbard, a Tulsi Gabbard, or a Nikki Haley?
No, it will never be Nikki Haley because of the same reason. He's never going to risk a Mike Pence again, ever, folks. So it has to be a true believer, not somebody who's just willing to pretend. And Haley's a pretender, right? She doesn't believe any of it. In fact, she finds most of it horrific. So it will definitely not be Nikki Haley. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Go on. Finish your thought.
I was going to say, and we have Steve Bannon on his war room before he went to prison where he sits right now. He was, talking. I mean, obviously he's very connected into internals of the Trump op. And, he's openly talking about, well, we don't need suburban women. Well, I'm here to tell America, yes, he does. Okay. He needs suburban women. And that's why, I don't care who the nominee is. I care about the strategy, and that strategy is to get into the suburbs in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, all these swing states, and make sure suburban voters who are college educated find out about Project 2025 and find out what's going to happen to them if they have a pregnancy complication.
You said that Halo is not a true believer and that JD Vance was, but he wasn't always a true believer because
That's true.
I'm stunned that he would pick him because I interviewed JD Vance a number of times. Remember Hillbilly Elegy? He would come on and he was a never Trumper. He talked about how many times did he talk about he compared Trump to Hitler? He even implied that he was a
Oh, I
sexual
know.
predator in 2016. You know what? Here, roll the clip. Here it is.
What do you think of this? This is sort of back. It's sort of interesting, evocative at the time because we used to say stewardess first of all. Now we say flight attendant, but just it gives you that sense of history. But this woman is not a show off. She's just telling what happened so we can know it.
Yeah, and it's sort of, it makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No, denial is normal.
And I.
Yeah, I mean, but that was pretty easy. I mean, he said worse things on my show than that. So I mean,
Good. Let's make sure you get all that tape to me then, Don, because I'm gonna need it, right?
If
he's
just
the
go on the
nominee,
internet and Google Don Lemon and JD Vance, and I think
no, that's good to know because I honestly, I didn't know that you had interviewed him extensively. But yeah,
he was on CNN all the time. It's not just me. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's honestly like the one thing that if it's not Vance, that will be why. But I think Trump's more concerned with what's going forward, right? They have a plan to collapse our system of government, right? And the most important thing that Trump will be considering is, will this person be willing to let us do it? And I think JD Vance in the last 8 years has demonstrated a strong aptitude to do that.
Okay, so I want to do something fun before we get out of here, right? You and anybody out there, guys, pay attention. Pay attention if you're watching. Pay attention if you're watching live. Pay attention if you're watching on tape. Does anyone or everyone, because I certainly do, remember this hilarious Key and Peele sketch about Obama? It's from just a couple years back. Yeah, actually, it's been quite a while. That show's been off the air, maybe 10 years. About how he interacts slightly differently with Black constituents, right? Or just Black people who are like in a rope line to see him than white ones. Well, life imitates art, and we're going to show you why. First, though, we're going to show you the real Key and Peele sketch, and then we'll show you Obama at a fundraiser just this week. Okay, so let's see the original Key and Peele from years ago.
Peter Tencio. All right, nice to meet you.
Jerome Smith.
Come on, brother. What's up, fam? You know this.
Keith Williamson.
Nice to meet you.
Mary Woodbury.
Nice to meet you.
Jay Martell.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Tasha Robinson.
Come on. Feel that?
Emily George.
Feel that? All right. Nice to meet you.
All right.
Daryl Stokes.
Come on. What's up, fam? How you doing?
That's good.
Never forget about that, because that's all we got. Nice to meet you. All right. Oh, bring it in. Start from the bottom, now we're here.
Jamie would love this.
Nice to meet you. All right. Nice to meet you. All right. Nice to meet you.
So listen, I've actually seen this
pass that
happen
on to
live.
the chair. I think he's going to like that a lot, dude. That's a good blast from the past. Oh my God.
So I've seen that in person.
By the way,
Now,
I endeavor to be cool enough that I can get a hug, like I want the high five, the fist bump.
all right, watch this though. This is the fundraiser.
Good to see you, man.
Got my vote.
Oh my God.
All right. It is true I am the Hooper in Chief. And
I haven't seen him.
I just want to come here
at the end. He's like, "You're cool.
to obviously help send off.
You're cool with Black people, right?" That is hilarious. That's hilarious. What do you think of that?
Dude,
Rachel?
that was epic. Oh my God. I'm so glad you showed me that.
I have to say, look, but that's what the Democrats need right now, right? And Joe Biden needs a little of that swag. I think, yeah.
He does. I mean, there's coolness is tough like that though, right? You either are cool or you're not. Like it can't be taught, like it's
I
one of those
miss
intangibles.
I miss the Obama presidency. I remember being in Washington for the inauguration when he was handing it off to Donald Trump. And I see it, I was just like trying not to think about it. And then when the Obamas got on that helicopter, I said, holy shit, I'm so scared. What's going to happen to this country? And it was just surreal as they were leaving. And I really missed the Obama presidency. I never thought that I would say that because I've not been a political person, but he's a good president.
Right.
He's a good president. We felt
He
like we were
was,
in
and I got to tell you,
good
a
hands.
period of optimism too that his election introduced. You know what I mean? And it's just so important for folks to understand like what's happening and what's driving a lot of this is the demographic changes that we all celebrate. We think is the greatest thing, right? And it is. But what has happened is it has created a backlash movement and identity politics of white people who have been targeted with propaganda and radicalized against us. And now they want to elect a madman and give him ultimate dictator powers against the rest of us. So we're really in I miss Obama time period myself, Don.
Yeah. So there was someone in the comments that the last person was Steve Kerr. I know I said a basketball coach. I didn't. The former coach for Golden State. So he's like, that's why I said you've coached. You're cool with black people because you've coached the NBA. Thank you, Rachel Bitecofer. Anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I really encourage people
to
read the book. Read the book. Try to not publicly contribute to hurting the nominee until and unless he's not the nominee. Okay. And then you can, have all your feels, but not in public. Just wait, please, because he might be the nominee. So let's not pile on him and make it even harder to elect him if your goal is to survive. And one thing I will say in close, I get why it seems simple to the public, and that really is why I think I almost hope that Biden does leave now is because the public sees this as a simple answer. And if we don't deliver on it, it's not gonna help.
Yeah. Read the book.
Yeah.
And you're going to be watching the press conference, correct? Yes.
Oh, I'm sure everyone will be watching that. And, like I said, the bar is going to be like this. So, good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up before you get out of here, please. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs up. It's really good for us. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Rachel, get all of your, I know you have a newsletter or something, so make sure you get everybody to subscribe and watch our fantastic
I do. I have a cycle on Substack is what it's called, the cycle on Substack. You can Google it and you'll really get a lot of sanity in that. None of this horse race bullshit. It's going to be real data, real analysis, and not a lot of suspense. This, no matter who our nominee is, folks, we're in a toss-up scenario. It's going to be toss-up today, toss-up in October, and toss-up on November 5th. Do the work. That's all that matters.
Okay, so Just says, thank you, Rachel. You can get out of here. I'm going to talk to the subscribers a little bit. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll see you soon. So Just says, Candace Owens comments before you go. She yapping. Okay, so yes, I interviewed Candace Owens yesterday, and she put some of the clips on social media or wherever. But and I put some out there, and we're sort of going back and forth. Rachel, you don't have to stay around for this. You can click off if you want. And so, we got into a bit about same-sex marriage. We got into a bit about just a number of things. She said that my marriage was sinful, that I was living in sin because I was in a same-sex relationship or marriage or whatever. And I told her that people use scriptures to, they twist them to whatever they want. They misinterpret them or they do whatever for their own benefit. And I said the same scriptures, the same Bible passages, and the same reason, they use the same reason to say that interracial marriage is a sin and ungodly. And she is in an interracial marriage. And so I asked her if she was living in sin. She didn't like that. She denied that people did that and denied that it's even in the Bible that it's something like that, but it's all there. She also said that I introduced a clip during our show, or when I was interviewing her, of her saying you should bring back shame. And I forget, bring back something that she said. And we should start bringing back words like the F word that we use about gay people and what have you. And I said, language evolves. And that word, especially in America, word has never been really used in America. She said it meant like, a bundle of sticks. People don't use that word in America. As I said, language evolves. And, the word that we call dogs, right? A female dog. I could say the word, but I won't because I find it offensive. A female dog, that is a word that we don't use because it's been co-opted, right, to be used as an insult. First towards women, but then now towards everyone. Now, some people said, call themselves that, and they use it in jest. But we know when we're using that word, it's usually meant to insult someone. So people don't go around calling people that, and just using that word publicly. And I think she understood that, but I actually think it's a grift, right? She knows better. I think she's actually a smart woman. So anyway, that was my comments. But there's much, much more in that interview. We talked about a lot. January 6th, we talked about Trump, we talked about Biden, and on. Just a lot of things. And that interview, I think we're going to run it on Monday, possibly tomorrow, but I'll let you know. But we're going to run it and we'll drop it. But make sure you pay attention to social media. And if you feel a certain kind of way about that, about Candace Owens, about me interviewing her, we talked about anti-Semitism, some of her remarks on that. We talked about the reason she got let go from, was it the Daily Wire, I think, with Ben Shapiro's company or Ben Shapiro's site. We discussed that. So if you feel a certain kind of way, go on social media. Go on, you can go on the YouTube. It's up on a short. You can go on to Twitter. You can go on to Facebook. You can go on Instagram, and you can go on TikTok. So the clips are there, and you can comment and let me know what you think in there. So get in there and fight for me if you believe. And otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. So thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the thumbs up before you get out of here. And I love you, Lemonheads. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.